Oh man. All right, we'll have to rifle through that. We'll have to rifle all through. He might just. I'm gonna say, sure, you don't want to just call in. Are we rolling? Yeah. Fly is coming with some quality content here, as he normally does. See here. All right, so let's say, sure, you don't want to just call in. Let's see if we can get Fly to call in. That'd be funny if he does. So, what's up, man?
Not much.
You good?
Yeah.
What you been up to lately?
Well, my boat's in the boatyard.
Yeah?
Fished a Viking tournament with Jeffrey Chapman, and
The Key West one?
yes,
Oh, how'd it go?
it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah?
It's the second or third time I fished it. It's always fun.
That's a good tournament.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's fun. The parties are phenomenal.
Really. I've never been down for it, but I know the Papa's Pilar crew gets really heavily involved in that one.
Yep, they're there, and just the food. The open bar has every top shelf thing you could imagine.
Really? I like
And,
Top Shelf.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's
It's
great.
my middle name. How'd
Yeah.
you know that?
Fishing was, sail fishing was a little slow, but you're still sitting there. You're picking off tunas all day,
Mhm.
kingfish, cobias are eating your kite baits, dolphin. It's always good fishing down there that time of year, even if it's not the best sail fishing because the weather, whatever. But
Right.
fishing altogether is always great down there.
Yeah, I love Key West anyway. It's such a great place. I mean, even like over the years, it's stood the test of time.
Yes.
It's just a quality place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's a good town.
Yeah.
You know,
My dad, when I was in middle school and high school, we'd always leave our center console down there December through April. And we'd
Yeah.
drive down every weekend that it wasn't blowing a gale and fish and hung out with the guides. And I mean, so you learned a lot of light tackle stuff and jigs and artificial and
Mm-hmm.
different ways and stuff like that. And then since I became a captain and stuff like that, and got a bookload of numbers and taking your bosses down there. Now Pulley Ridge is out there, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
it's
Pulley
good.
Ridge. I mean, that's my buddy Carl Trays is actually my dentist too. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you know Carl.
I don't know.
No, he's a cool guy, right? But he's like half the time he's underwater, half the time he's above water.
Yep.
He's just an all around waterman, and he's heading out to that Pulley Ridge trip. He
Yeah.
tells me it's like a 13-hour run on that Yankee Captain or
Yeah.
something like that. That's a long way. That's like you can drive to North Carolina in that time.
I know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today, man. I'm pretty stoked to have you here, in the gallery because I mean you're supposed to come like a few weeks ago. I owe you a bottle of rum because all the cool questions you keep asking. But we got a ton of cool questions that people have teed up for you today. So
Uh-oh.
yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. The yeah, all right. So Fly's chiming in. And he's saying he's in Saudi Arabia at the moment. He'd love to, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning right now. So yeah, all good. We forgive you, Fly. That's all right. So here we are with Eric Leech, right? And welcome to the Connected by Water
Thank you.
podcast. We're powered by Joey Cardi Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and fueled by our very good friends at Papa's PLR Rum, who remind you never to be a spectator. We want to remind everyone to like, listen, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you haven't already, we also want to thank our other sponsors, the W Sauce for being our official magic cooking sauce, and they also they have this breakfast sauce now, and they're just introducing it. I haven't tried it yet, so I'm gonna bring it home this weekend and do so.
Nice.
And also, of course, our friends over there at Finor Sunglasses, right, and Dave Boltice and the crew, bringing it home like they always do. So, and I want to mention our Starbright do-gooders. Right off the bat, because we took a couple weeks off, so there's a couple weeks backed up of the do-gooders that we don't have. And if you're listening for the first time, we do this every episode, where Starbright awards their do-gooder of the week, someone who really focuses on conservation, someone who is just an ambassador and a steward of the environment in a good, positive, and conservationally minded way. So we got 3 in a row that are all solid people. Ali Husseini from BD Outdoors, and the host of the Local Knowledge TV show. He's been nominated by Derek and Corey Redwine, and those are the primarily who nominates our winners. And we got Brian Conley, Master Rod Builder,
Yep.
right? He's been nominated. All the good that they do for conservation. And also Chad Paulson from Blue Marlin Real Estate up there in Merritt Island. So boom, boom, boom. We got 3 in a row. And those are all 3 quality people. So congrats to you guys. You guys are Starbright do-gooders of the weeks. And you guys get all the salt off and the degreaser and the reggae sponge and all the cool salt, about $200 worth of Starbright products in there.
Nice.
So yeah. So anyway, it's funny because we were sitting with Starbright at the table at the Broward County CCA annual banquet that they just had, and it was such a great event. By the way, it really was. They like that chapter keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it this year.
Yeah, Mike's been doing such a great job with that chapter. The whole room was full, completely sold out, which was great. We were all happy about that. Lorelei, my assistant, you know Lorelei Bennett, right? My assistant, she won the. We're going to announce this properly, okay? So we had her on with Mike. They did a whole episode, and we did that to announce that she was the first ever youth scholarship winner for the CCA.
Oh, excellent.
Right? Yeah, pretty cool, right? So out of all the applicants across the state of Florida, she got invited to be one of the top 10 to go up to mud hole fishing up there in Central Florida. And they only award the top 3 best performers of that week scholarships. Wow. And she got the top scholarship, so she got the most money out of all the kids.
Awesome.
Right? We were so proud of her. We were so excited for her. But she just found out that last week she took the grand scholarship. That qualified her to get in the grand scholarship running. She took the grand scholarship award.
Oh.
Yeah, for the biggest scholarship. So she got 2 scholarships out of the whole thing, basically. So what they did at the Broward Bank was she sat with me. We brought her in, and she didn't know we were doing this. She just thought she was, invited to come and hang out and everything. And Mike did a whole big announcement for her and brought her up on stage, and she had to do a speech. And we kind of like put her on the spot. But she would work through it like a champ, like she is. So congratulations to Lorelei Bennett, right? Who took the Grand Youth Scholarship, the first ever Grand Youth Scholarship in the CCA's history. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we're very, very excited for her. But the whole Broward chapter, the reason I was going to bring this up originally, though, is I saw your dad was there.
Yes.
Right? But I went over to after dinner, like, because everyone's kind of like, at the end of it, if you haven't been to a CCA event, right, they want you to buy all these raffle tickets and, and spend money as they should. It's a fundraising event, right? So at the end, if your raffle numbers come up and you got to race to the table, if you don't race to the table, then you're going to be in this long line of people, and it's going to take forever for you to get what you won. So right there, we're like, oh, we're going to race over to the table. And I was going to come back. I want to say hi to your dad. And he had already gone. So I was kind of bummed out about that. And the reason I wanted to do that was I hadn't seen him in years. And I don't even know if your dad would remember me. But when I was like a 17, 18-year-old kid, when I was going to Gibbons, right? So it was your dad and Jim Brown, right, that kind of brought me into the fold of the IGFA. And that's really, it was between that and the Wildfish Collection, when Mary Allison Reed, they own the Wildfish Collection, they're the ones that really told me to go down the street, because the IGFA used to be right here down the street.
Yep.
Right, about half a mile, right, down the block. And that's where they had the old library there, and it was such a magical place. I'm sure you know it well.
Oh, yeah.
And being, the son of the former president, but I have fond memories of your dad and Jim. I worked with both of them at the time, and they really kind of gave me a platform, and they allowed me to put artwork up at the Breakers events and then all the other different events. And I started working with them a little bit. Now, fast forward, I ended up going to art school and kind of got away from it, and then ended up coming back to it. Now I'm working with like Jack and Jason and all those guys now, and Adrian. But it was really like your dad really gave me a good opportunity early on. And I never forgot that about him. And he was always just such the nicest guy, to be around and to work with. And in fact, 2 of my originals sold through the IGFA. And then I ended up getting commissioned by this one guy that bought those. So he saw this little kid and he wanted to help me out. That was Tread Barta.
Okay.
So that was kind of like a springboard for me to really like, man, I can really do this for a living. So everyone always asks me, oh, how'd you get started? Or, you know what I mean? Well, that was one of those moments that really did it for me. So,
excellent. Yeah.
I was kudos to your dad and tell him I said hi.
I will.
So, I mean, I know you've been on a few shows. of these podcasts, and
Yep.
I and all those guys ask you some really great questions, but I really wanted to bring you in here because I really wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, you've lived a life that's been connected by water your entire life. This is what you know. This is what you are. It's
Yep.
what you do.
It's the
Right.
only job I've ever had.
That's it. And I mean, I'd be hard pressed for you probably even to call it a job.
Correct.
Right. I think it's just like an extension of who you are. Um, Take me through that a little bit, like what it was like for you to kind of just grow up. I mean, were there ever any question marks for you as to what you were going to be when you got older, kind of thing? Like, let's start in the very beginning. Like, how was that like as a kid with your dad was the president of the IGFA? You're growing up with salt in your veins. Take me
Yep.
through that.
Yeah, we grew up on the water, Fort Lauderdale, right off, Sunrise and Federal. And
Mm-hmm.
so we could fish off our dock. Growing up, we always had a center console, 25-foot Mako, then CVs and contenders and whatnot. We always had a flats boat. And so, we fish almost every weekend somehow,
Mm-hmm.
Chokoloskee, Flamingo, the Keys, out here, Fort Pierce, Key West a lot. And then at night, my dad, his homework, he would be the final review for world records.
Right.
And he'd come back and he'd have the box and he'd sit there at the dining room table and do, and every so often, check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this tiger fish that was caught in Zambezi on this. Look at this fly that they used, or this jig, and you could see.
So you have the flies and the jigs in the palm of your hand at that point.
Yeah. You could see every,
because they have to send them in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could see the hook set, or you'd say, oh, this one wasn't legal. This is why, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you could see how people caught fish literally all over the world and stuff like that.
Great exposure for you.
Yeah. And then even at the time, I didn't realize how many, I heard the hooker, one of the first calls they made was probably to my dad. Hey, we caught 20 blue marlin in one day.
So it was like Skip Smith, like over and over and over and over again in your house?
Yeah. And so stuff like that. And at the time, I realized it's impressive, but I didn't realize until I was still in high school at the time.
Right.
I didn't realize how impressive
you went to Westminster, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I went to Gibbons.
Yep. So yeah, we're just looking at schools for my son.
Really?
He's in 7th grade and he's getting ready. So we're looking at high schools right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm not quite there yet. I got my daughter's 12. My son is 9.5, so I don't have to really worry about it so much, but it's coming. But she's starting to tween pretty hard right now.
I can imagine.
It's a little scary.
But yeah, so we fished, and then we fished a lot of tournaments with my dad. I think I started tournament fishing when I was 9, and it was little tournaments, Mr. Laughs, and Crime Stoppers and stuff like that. And then we worked, I worked my way up. My dad had been fishing all those tournaments, the Miami Billfish, the Lauderdale Billfish, the rodeo.
The rodeo.
Yeah.
Man, that was such a great tournament, man. I mean, every year there's talk about bringing it back, but the more we investigate and the more we talk to people about it, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's tough, but that was such a great community event, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my senior year in high school, we fished 18 local tournaments. Sailfish and the meat tournaments and stuff like that. My dad won the Triple Crown, which was the Miami Billfish, the Lauderdale Billfish, and the rodeo.
Right.
And then I think that was my junior year. And then, but here's what really started me. When I was 15, obviously through my dad, the French Look, the big mothership operation, was in town. They just finished a giant season in Madeira where they killed like 5 granders. And so they invited my dad and my mom and myself to have dinner on the boat with some other people. So they showed us around. They showed us polished marlin bones and eye sockets and bills. And I said, this is what I want to do.
That's it.
This is it.
You saw that, and that was it.
That was it. I
That's
was
cool that you
15.
remember that moment, though, because a lot of people really got to think about that.
I was really into fishing anyways, but then
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. And then I'll jump a little bit. I worked on the charter boats and learned how to rig baits, and went to George Copeland and learned how to throw a big cast net and all the stuff you need to know. But then fast forward, when I'm 18 turning 19, they're doing a crew change for mates, and I get hired as the second mate with Jody Whitworth as the first mate on the French
Wow.
Look.
Yeah, wow.
And so we started in Hawaii, we went to Cabo and fished the Bisbee, went through the Panama Canal, then down to Vitória, Brazil. And we fished down there, and James Roberts came back as the captain, who was running it back in the day when they caught all the granders and everything, and they had Mikey Latham as a mate. And so fast forward a couple months, we've won a tournament down there, we've killed some marlin, we've released some really big marlin, and Jody Whitworth gets dengue fever down there.
Wow,
which is
really?
Like malaria light.
Yeah.
But it's still a very serious,
Right.
thing. And
I heard that that's a pretty tough thing to live through.
yes. I mean, he was fishing, and he was, it's hot.
Yeah.
And he's in his full rain gear sitting between the engines, shivering. And we hooked a fish, and he wasn't strong enough to lift the 130 out to clear it. That's when he went, we took him in. Took him to the hospital. Like, this is serious. But Mikey Latham happened to be putting some cameras on Tim Choate's boat down there. So when Jody got dengue, Mikey Latham jumped on with us. And one of the days Mikey Latham was fishing with us, we hooked a marlin. At the time, I didn't, I don't know sizes that much. But we had James Roberts, Mikey Latham, and John Paul all calling it about 1,500 pounds. And so I'm sitting there thinking back to 3.5 years ago when I was eating dinner on this boat, thinking this is what I want to do. And all of a sudden I have the 3 people I really wanted to do it with that I was dreaming about from when I was 15. I'm sitting here with, could have been the largest marlin ever caught. We ended up losing it.
Dude, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that part. Listen, a lot of times I ask on this show, you may know already, what's your one that got away, right? And usually I have to ask it. People don't offer it up for me right away, but it sounds like that was your one that got away.
That was.
I mean, 1,500 pounds. I mean, that's tough to beat. You don't really match that anywhere else. So.
No, we had one. We didn't hook it, but it came up behind our spread in St. Thomas, and you saw like the dorsal, kind of like a head and dorsal, 50 yards back of the spread or whatever. And you thought it was a pilot whale. And then all of a sudden you just saw this giant sickle tail come up. It wasn't on any bait or anything. And we didn't leave that spot for another 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's worth the whole day right there to see that again.
We never had a bite, but I know the late Jim Lambert was like, thing's huge. We got to stay here. This is us.
You're giving me a bunch of stuff to segue into here, but we'll get to Jimmy Lambert in a little bit. But I want you to kind of explain to me this thought. There seems to be one of the biggest, let me put it to you this way, one of the biggest reasons that we like doing this show, that we wanted to do this show, is to record history, right? And to just record the people that make up the history, I guess, is probably one way to put it. Because if you can imagine all the people that you're mentioning, if there was such a thing as a podcast in the 80s, that someone would bring them in and talk through it, I mean, that would be just like the coolest shit in my mind. You go back and you hear all these stories and you just get really intimate with these people, and that's what I wanted to do with you today. That's what I try to do with every guest, is just kind of get underneath your skin a little bit and figure out who you are, what your story is, and and why that's important, or explain to people why that's important, because it really is. But there seems to be this path, or this river in time, in different times, right? Snapshots of the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s or whatever the case may be. which is where you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
like right now, um, of this traveling circus, so to speak, of people,
Yes.
right? And it's almost like that's the place to be. And just, I just want to just say this because the story that you just told had a lot of really quality names in it, of like the Choates and the Lamberts, and we mentioned Skip Smith, and even just everything on the French Lick, and there were other names, but you were there for all that,
A lot of it, yes.
a lot of it, a lot of it, right? And when you look back on that, how really does that make you feel?
Oh, it's amazing. Feel very lucky to be a part of it back then. Um, I was getting towards the end of, back then you could, you know, I'm for conservation, but you used heavy leader. You killed some fish, and
Mm-hmm.
you had to skill and stuff like that. You're not, a lot of it today is 100-pound leaders, and you don't need much skill and wiring to do that. It's when it's got the heavier stuff, and you got to, when you're trying to kill a fish, let it go, keep it,
Right.
um, and some of the spots, you can't go to Venezuela anymore. Some of the hot spots have been shut down and stuff like that. But
Right. Venezuela.
yeah,
You fished there.
yes,
That must have been incredible. I mean, there's multiple people that come on this show that say that that's the best fishery there ever was.
that it was amazing. I mean, you could literally have a grand slam up in your spread at any time. Oh man, we got two or three. All right, we're gonna go drop over here for a swordfish real quick and catch our swordfish.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the first fantasy slam was ever caught. And
Yeah.
special place.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope one day it opens up again.
Yes.
Really, I mean, that really truly is the hope. I mean, and for a
Yeah.
lot of reasons though, not just fishing wise,
Correct.
just for the people there as well.
Yeah.
The place, hopefully, that place just gets better.
Yeah.
Andy Moyes, um, I was talking to Andy, and he really says that killing a fish is a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the releasing now, I mean, obviously we believe in conservation,
Yes.
and we believe in the releasing, and there's plenty of organizations that we all support that indicate that, but you just don't see it as much anymore, and it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
You got any horror stories, or you got any good stories? I mean, take me through what your thoughts on actually killing a fish is to you.
I mean, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
You've got the wireman, you've got the captain, you've got the angler. Angler, once you grab the leader, he's got to back off the drag, but not too low in case you drop it. Your gaff man has to follow you. We would do it like on the French Look. Whoever the wireman was, the other guy, the second mate, or the first mate because you took turns, had a tag stick. And you practiced following the wireman and staying behind them and getting your tag. So you were still practicing for gaffing, even though you were tagging and releasing these fish. You're always practicing. And it's, you got to learn. When the fish jumps, you don't flip it back to the boat because if his tail's still going, he's coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't want to break the leader when you want it. So you got to learn to give on your arm, with your arm, and stay in the boat. So it's a lot going on.
It's a different process altogether.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Like you say, you don't want to break that leader. I mean, you got to get that fish in the boat. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And that's a mean green fish too. A lot of times.
A lot of times,
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
What's the best wireman you ever worked with?
I fished with Charles Perry, who's arguably one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Randy Baker, who's really good, and Jody out, Mikey Latham, and I've been lucky enough to, Tiny,
Yep, Tiny,
Jason.
Yep.
So I've been, real lucky to be with a bunch of real good people. I was lucky when I went to Australia. A lot of times the Americans down there, the Australian mates,
Mm-hmm.
might only give you like every fourth fish, It's not always 50-50.
Oh, really?
And then if it's your turn and oh man, this one's 700, they're like, sorry, mate, you get the next one. Next one, this one's mine until you've established yourself.
Yeah.
So I was lucky.
You're new around here.
Yeah. So I was lucky. My second mate was kind of a captain that was between jobs, and he had no intention of grabbing any leaders. So I got to wire all the fish that season while I was down there on the boat.
Yep. Oh, wow, you must have got some reps
So
then.
yeah, that was excellent. And
where in Australia was it? Was it Cairns?
Out of Cairns, yeah.
Yeah.
We worked our way all the way up to Lizard Island and back.
Okay.
And we had some mothership charters, and then we had some live-aboard charters.
Okay.
And we had one day, we had a walk-up. 2 American guys walked up at like 9 a.m., said, can we go? And we took them at lunchtime, and we were pulling a 30-pound live yellowfin tuna, and we had a 20-pound dead scaly mackerel. And we get a bite on the live tuna, and we're just starting to use circle hooks. So it's in free spool. The guy gets in the chair and locks in. And I said, okay, let me clear this one, and then you kind of come tight on that. And as I'm doing it, all of a sudden this giant marlin comes up, eats the 20-pound scaly mackerel, no drop back, comes tight on that one. Then we reel up, come tight on that one. So we've got him on 2 rods.
Wow.
So we back off on the second one that he ate, the scaly mackerel, and we fight him in the chair. That one, I was the only mate that day. We got it up, and it was big, and we're like, man, I think it's 1,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's big.
Really? That big?
Yeah. So that one, I had the leader, and with my foot, I picked up the flying gaff. They said, all right, well, let's kill it.
Mm-hmm.
So I sunk the first gaff, and then the captain came down and threw another gaff in it. It ended up being 963 pounds.
Oh, wow.
She had dumped her rose 12 feet even on the short length.
Really?
44 inches on the short length, but it was thin at the tail.
Wow.
So we were
Those guys got a day.
Yeah.
Those guys
a
walked
quick
up at 9
charter.
a.m. and you get a 960?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The fast forward a little bit. Well, not fast forward because I don't even know where the hell we are anymore. But, so you're on the French Slook. You got your job. You got your dream job.
Yep.
You're in your early 20s. You're loving life.
Yep.
And you catch your world record.
Yeah.
Right?
I did.
Take me through that a little bit. Because, all right, I've heard some of the stories already, but I want to hear it from you here today on Connected by Water. And because your dad works for the IGFA, and, I listened to a little bit of your and Fly's podcast he did, so I know a little bit of the conversation. I want some of this audience to hear it as well, because I think it's a really, really cool story. So, full disclosure, you already kind of told this on Fly's podcast, so I don't want Fly to get upset. Be like, man, I talked about this, but I want to bring it up now.
All right. Well, I'll add a little bit to it. I'll start
All right, cool.
the story the day before because it was pretty funny. So we're fishing in Yap, Micronesia, which is 6 degrees above the equator, like in line with Japan.
You go through the whole dance in the process when you
So,
did the crossover?
No. Oh, every time we crossed over the equator.
Like the turtle shell thing and all that?
Every time we would stop on the equator and swim.
Okay.
Every time we crossed.
Isn't there some ceremony that some people do?
I don't. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was watching.
We never did, but
movie or
we always did. It was always calm on the equator,
something.
and every single time we stopped, and
Yeah, that's cool.
everybody would jump in and swim around the boat for half hour or whatever on the equator.
Nice. So tell me this.
So-
I cut you off. Totally
No.
cut you off.
Oh, but to fish there, we had to have a meeting. There's 12 chiefs on the island,
Mm-hmm.
and the island was divvied up into 12
year is
sections. This is 2000,
Okay.
right after Y2K.
So they don't have any. I was gonna say they don't have any Y2K
No,
issues on that
no,
island.
they didn't have any issues. So, but we had to meet with them, and they're like, "You can fish, but don't kill anything." We're like, "Okay, no problem." And then one chief is like, my village is a little malnourished.
Mm-hmm.
If you catch some nice tuna or something, would you, off my section of island, would you bring it in for us? And by the end of the meeting, they were like, please kill everything. We want all the food. bring it in, and we'll divvy it up ourselves.
Did somebody talk them into this? Or
No,
did they
I
talk
think
themselves
it
into
went from him.
It sounds like you're getting a little bamboozled on this
This is
meeting.
like a good deal.
Yeah.
And then they all were like, yeah, just bring it all into this dock and we'll divvy it up. Just bring us everything you catch. So I said, okay. So we were fishing out at the seamount. There's a couple spots. It's kind of like a little atoll. And
Okay.
you could fish right off the drop off where it's, barrier reef to 3,000, 4,000 feet.
Wow.
Right. And there's a couple seamounts out there.
Fast drop-offs?
Yes. I mean, real vertical.
Yeah.
So we're fishing out at the seamount the day before. And every time you put the center rigger out, it's a 30-pound to 50-pound yellowfin. It's 30-pound wahoos, dolphin, nonstop. And we were just starting to fish some teasers, bridge teasers, because most of it was 130s really fishing for giant marlin. So we're mixing it up a little bit because we're kind of out of season and kind of want a little bit of everything. So every time we'd hook a fish, we'd reel in the bridge teasers, get the fish in the boat. Well, a lot of times Jody Whitworth, who was the captain, and Tiny was the other mate with me.
Oh, so Tiny's with
me
Okay.
at this time. And we go, and Tiny would give Jody a really hard time about forgetting to put the bridge teasers out. So we're like, oh man.
Tiny likes giving people a hard time.
He's like, he has one job up there. Can't remember to put these bridge teasers out. This is ridiculous. So later on in the day, Tiny's driving. Whatever, lo and behold, we catch another wahoo or tuna, whatever. Tiny forgets to put the bridge teasers back out.
Really?
So I lean over the corner and I take a wrap of the bridge teaser and I yank on it. Sips the bridge teaser line. Tiny grabs it. He's like, there he is, left bridge. He's still got it, won't let go. And I'm over here yanking on it. I'm about to fall out of the boat laughing so hard. Everybody's laughing under the cover. It's still big. He's swimming with us. I can't get it out of his mouth. He's like, yeah. And then finally we're all laughing. He calls us a bunch of names or whatever. Go on. So the very next day, it's just Jody Whitworth and myself. And we're fishing together. And we're just fishing real close to the island now, right on the drop-off. And first, Jody's like, oh, I got to go use the head. So I'm driving. As soon as he goes down the ladder, I hear zzz. So I'm like, oh, real funny, ha, ha, ha. And I'm looking down there, and I can clearly see he's not there, and I hear zzz. So I'm like, oh, it's a blue marlin. So I'm like, blue marlin, right teaser. I'm like yelling. I'm like, I'm not joking. Get out here. Really?
Right.
So he's down there. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm really falling for this thing now. So we caught this blue marlin. We actually caught it, killed it, put it in the boat for the villages. And every time we go in real close to the island, we'd mark a bunch of fish, like 300 to 800 feet. We're like, man, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
So, end of the day, we got to drop on this thing and see what these fish are. So we pull up, and I've got a 20-pound spinning rod. I think I had 40 or 50-pound mono leader and like a 3-ounce, arrowhead jig, not the slow pit, the big lead.
Mm-hmm.
And we dropped it down, and it's falling. Jody's like, we got pushed off too fast. Reel it up. So I'm jigging it back up. About halfway up, I get bit. Things fighting hard. And Jody's like, oh, if you get tired, I'll come down and relieve you. And I jokingly said, as remote as we are and as big as this thing's fighting, it could be a world record.
You said that.
I said that. I didn't believe it. And up comes this giant dogtooth tuna, and we gaff it, pull it in the boat. And we had just caught one a few days earlier, which was the first one any of us had ever caught. It was 70 pounds, and it ate a marlin lure. And he's like, that thing's like twice the size. So we call the mothership on the way in, charge the scale up, because we always had a certified scale with us, and meet us in there. What is it on the world record? And it's 100 pounds. Like, oh, we're pretty sure we got it beat. So you have to weigh it on land. So we weigh it on land with a forklift and everything. And it was 137.4 pounds.
Wow.
on 20-pound test.
That's a big dog tooth.
So, yeah. So
Well,
20,
obviously, it's a world record.
and 23 years later, it still stands.
Still stands.
Still stands.
Nice.
So, but
Nice.
yeah.
So your dad had to certify it.
Yeah. So at the time, it's back before you had digital pictures.
Okay.
So, and you have to have pictures and measurements of your gaff that you used and send in your line and, the rod measurements from the reel to the butt and the, overall and all that stuff. And so I don't know. I probably took 3 rolls of film of everything, 10 pictures of everything.
Right, had to bring it to Echo Drugs?
Yeah. So I send it all back. I didn't develop it. I sent it all back to my parents in Florida, with the application and everything. And so I'm sitting there, and it's been months. And I'm like, what is going on with my world record?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it...
Like, it's a world record at this point.
We know it was big enough.
Like in your
but
heart,
they
it's a world record.
They have to test the line, but we're pretty sure, we always... but we always had IGFA line. So we're pretty sure, but, it still has to go through the... He's like, I don't know. I haven't even seen it yet. It hasn't come to me yet. I'm like, no, I don't ask for many favors. But like, it's been like 3 months at this time. Could you
right?
I am your son. Could you
right.
just check them? I'm not asking
Make
you to
a call, pick up the phone.
Yeah,
something.
walk down the hall. And so they, like a week later, he goes, oh, you're good. It passed.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Wouldn't that be something though? Like your dad being the president of the IGFA and like you made some sort of like technical error.
Yeah.
You probably never hear the end of that, like to this day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
So.
That's cool. So, congratulations on that. By the way. I didn't know that it still stood. That's pretty cool. You've made a life of this.
Yeah.
You have a family now, right? We talked on this show a lot about the life of a captain and how it's not always easy, right? But, it's not just like that's not always easy, but that's a different kind of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a family man, you guys seem to have just taken it all, your entire family, like fish to water, right? Which is a beautiful thing to see, to watch, you know what I mean? Obviously, if anyone follows you on social, you're always posting pictures of your kids, and it's just a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I just want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
Because we know how hard it is to keep that all sustained, and you got to be gone, and you don't know how long you're going to be gone for, but it seems like your family is just, you're bringing them up the way you got brought up.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about that and tell me like how that makes you feel and because to me that's connected by water.
Yep.
Right, in a nutshell.
Yep. Well, for one, my wife is very understanding. Obviously, she met me doing this. She was a teacher in St. Thomas, and I was on the reel tight in St. Thomas, and we met, and the rest is history. And so, but even this year, I called her from the Dominican Republic. I heard a couple other captains talking about, oh, yeah, my wife's just got married, and she's already given me a hard time about being gone for these 2 months and this.
2 months is a long time, though.
Yeah. So,
you can't blame her, though, sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you look at it, like if you're being honest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's a tough thing for both sides.
It works out because a lot of time, I've always had really great bosses.
Mm-hmm.
We've always been family and fishing buddies. I'm there, if it's their anniversary, they want to be on the boat usually or somewhere.
Yeah.
We're all there. Me and the mate, we all go to dinner together. We go here together. Even when we're home, they invite us to parties and social events together.
Yeah, that's good.
So we've always been super close. And it works out, You go to the Bahamas. Well, the boss isn't there the entire time. So he's going to be gone for 10 days. So now my family gets to come in for a week.
That's good.
We get used to the boat, or we had the little boat, you run around the abacos and you lobster, and you do all the fun stuff. You take the family offshore one day. And,
it's got to kind of be a prerequisite for you, I think.
Yeah.
To be like, if I can't do that, then I can't do this job.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's good that you worked it out like that. Like right now, like what's your current situation?
I run a 61 Viking And then we also have a 27 conch,
Okay.
like a bait boat, little boat.
Yeah. Nice program.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Very
Yep.
cool. So I want to talk about the reel type.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And because in this area, most people that listen to this show or watch this show understand that we are just sitting here in the heart of Pompano Beach, which we claim is the cradle of civilization when it comes to fishing, right? And we believe that. I mean, this is the IGFA was here, born here. You know what I mean? This is, I don't know. I just think this is the Eden of fishing, where it all started, right? It's not true, but it feels that way.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And you grew up here. I grew up here. So many of our other friends have grown up here, and and they're still here.
Yes.
The reel type was here, and everybody always looked at that boat here as that's the boat. And it's true. It was the boat. And you worked on that boat. You grew up on that boat, and you worked for Jimmy Lambert.
Yep.
And everybody knows that Jimmy Lambert was the best. But I want to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, the reel type was the only one. They offered me a job one time, and I was literally getting ready to go to Brazil, and I turned it down the first time. And the second time we're in Brazil, every time somebody would come fish with us, Jody would be like, tell them what they offered you. Because at the time, when we took the French Lick job, we didn't ask what the pay was. I didn't have a mortgage, didn't have rent, alimony, or anything. I want to travel and fish.
Mm-hmm.
They offered me, so I took
You were right for making that decision.
Yeah.
Because now look at your life and the dividends that experience has paid. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because nowadays a lot of guys like the first question is, well, what do I get paid?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't always need that. But then, and I always said, man, if I ever got the chance again, I won't turn it down. A couple of years later, I got the opportunity again, and I took it, and I mean, it was amazing because Jim he was just as good as any mate and captain as far as knowledge of lures and spreads and positions and hook sets, and we were always playing with stuff. Hey,
it's like the perfect boss.
Yeah, on this, he would say, hey, let's try, the Moisey J-Boy, or hey, man, that Polakai.
Would you think like the J-Boy is like the best lure ever made?
Yes.
I mean, come on,
lure.
It's got to be, right?
Yep. I mean, there's a ton of great lures.
He's a special dude.
He is amazing.
I mean, he's one of my really, really close friends, and I'm not just saying that for that reason, because everyone, he's been on the show like 20 times.
Yeah.
But that's got to be like the ultimate lure.
Yep. He did a one.
Not to sidetrack what you're saying, but
when he was getting started, we had a couple of like Marlin Magic lures that we really liked. Can you do this, but a little more belly weight?
Mm-hmm.
And he would do that for us, and whatever color combination you wanted and stuff like that. He's been amazing.
Yeah.
But then, so with Jim, I mean, all the time with this, hey, can we get a hook set? Where the hook is facing in on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side it's facing in. So when we get an inside-out bite, it's going to hook him in the corner. I mean, and Joe Fiegel was our statistician. He'd write down after every bite, every fish, where it was hooked.
You guys are doing math work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what position it was, what lure, what hook set we had, the weather that day, were we going up sea, down sea, beam sea, and you could look at it. Where were we, like in St. Thomas? Where were we on the North Drop? And we're getting all our bites in the saddle today, or this moon and last moon, or the big fish have been in the Cuban hole, or whatever. You'd work out stuff like that, and we had it all in black and white. Look back, and one of the first seasons we fished on, might have been the very first season. We get down there, they got some hook sets ready. And I'm new to the boat, and they go. Jim calls up when he goes, "Take all the barbs off the hooks." I'm like, oh, there goes our season. This is ridiculous. And it was like one of our best seasons. We had like 143 blue marlin that season in like 4 months or something like that.
In St. Thomas?
In St. Thomas. And the 8 8 or 9 seasons that I fished on the reel tight there. We had 7 of them where we caught more than 100 blue marlin every season. Just in St. Thomas.
That's it. That's outstanding.
Yes, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Fly with you a lot on these trips?
Fly was with them. Him and Joe started, 2 or 3 years before I started.
Okay.
And then I was the first one of the 3 to leave. And then Fly left, and then Eddie Herbert left. And Joe's still there, and he's running their brand new 88 that they just put in the water.
Right, which is a beautiful, beautiful boat. Yeah, absolutely. So barbs off the hooks.
Yep. Easier penetration. And some of the,
So still the math work's happening. So.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It was great hookup percentage, and Jim was a great angler, so that helped our percentage. And we would always just pitch bait lures. We weren't throwing mackerel or anything. Too many things could go wrong, and bait blows up or you miss it. You had a lure, if he misses it, the lure's still doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're teasing them in on a lure. So it's almost the same thing. You're not going from a big lure to now a ballyhoo or a mackerel. That's, it's kind of the same thing. So there's a whole system that worked really well for us.
So with that in mind, in your mind, how much of a contribution do you think that the reel type made to sport fishing?
A lot. A huge.
Like in the grand scheme of it all. Give me your insight on it.
I know a lot of people took off.
And ipso facto, you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we were calling it they called their pitch bait the Tingham.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, a lot of people, were using that. And he was a big proponent of pushing the BBC to be more release for conservation and stuff like that, because we had a huge year where there's a lot of fish killed.
Mm-hmm.
And and every fish that would killed, we'd go over there and we'd, if they didn't want the bill, we'd take the bill, or we'd cut off some of their dorsal spikes and anal spikes, and you could polish it up and it looks like ivory. So it's pretty neat keepsakes.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we killed one, tried all kinds of hooks and hook sets, how did it go in the mouth? How did it go around the bill? Where did it snag? Put the scale on it. How many pounds did it take to drive that hook into that? So there's a lot of, you're always learning and trying new things.
Sure. Yeah.
And
so I look at it from between those two boats, the French look and the reel tight, that a lot can be said that much of the knowledge we have in sport fishing today, those two boats had a heavy contribution to what we know about sport fishing today.
Yes.
And you were right in the middle of that.
Yeah, a lot of it.
So, I only bring that up because I really want people to really understand the magnitude of who our guest is today. And I just want to congratulate you on just having, no, I mean that. I really want to congratulate you on having, I don't want to even say successful career, right? Because you're happy, and that's a success, right? And I look at me the same way. I'm happy. That's the success. Yep. We're doing what we love to do, and all that. That's great, and we've done it in a way that's just successful or happy. It makes us happy. You know what Absolutely. I mean? That we were able to work with the people we want to work with, and do the things we want to do.
Yeah.
But it's really just, I don't even know what I'm getting at. I just want to say that it's really cool to have you here, and I just really wanted to shed a light on that and congratulate you on just being so influential into what happens today. And it's really cool just to sit here with you. And I love it. And it's awesome. So we're going to get to some questions.
All right.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. Because a lot of people know, and that we ask a lot of questions from our listener base, our fan base, whatever you want to call it, our friends, right? We'll say friends because it's all connected by water, and that's what it's all about, right? So I got a few dialed up for you today, and I got a couple on my phone. We're gonna end with flies. I'm just gonna like rip through flies like really fast, right? To end the whole damn question part of this, right? So I wasn't going to ask this when Carl asked it. Okay. But then Tiny asked it too. And I'm just like, you know what? All right, fine. I'm going to ask this question and I'm going to say it's from Carl and it's from Tiny, from Carl Hitch and from Tiny Walcott, right? How did the name Pork Chop come to be?
Yeah, James Roberts gave me that name.
Okay.
At the time, I was 19, had longer hair, kind of bleached out, a few pounds lighter,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in Brazil. And you go out to the nightclub, whatever. And the girls were interested in an American guy and stuff like that.
Right.
So James would say the girls looked at me like I was the last juicy pork chop on the plate. They all wanted it. So that's how it came to be. But then
that's a better answer than I thought it was going to be.
And then it kind of took off because he went to, we would kind of get like a month off. So he had his time off and went to Venezuela and fished. And he's just leaving this great season that we had in Brazil. So he's telling everybody, oh man, me and Pork Chop and Jody and everybody. So literally the next month, I get time off. I fly to Venezuela and I'm fishing with people down there. And they've all just heard all these amazing stories from Brazil and pork chops in them. So
okay.
As soon as I landed, I was pork chop to everybody down there. So
oh my God, that's funny. It just dawned on me. You fished. You've fished the planet.
About 22 countries.
22 countries. Asia?
Japan, Okinawa, Ogasawara, Palau, Yap, French Micronesia, Australia, Vanuatu.
How does the Japan fishery compare to here?
It was different. We were there kind of in their winter,
right?
So it wasn't as many billfish. We did catch quite a few spearfish, some sailfish. I don't think we caught any marlin when we were there.
You think you were there the wrong time of year?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I talked to Carl Anderson about. I guess they told some story about how some people from China had paid them to go there, and it was a really weird situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they tried to fish that fishery, but they couldn't get out fast enough. So I don't know. And I always wonder about that. We all talk about Venezuela, even the Mediterranean or Madeira and all that, and everything Atlantic and even our side of the Pacific. But just talking about Philippines and Japan and that side of the world. I mean, we really just hear about Australia mostly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Vanuatu, which is a little ways north of Australia, down there. That was phenomenal fishing.
Yeah.
Marlin, wahoos, tunas.
Yeah. We had Sheeter on here, and Mike talked to Mike, obviously, and he talked a lot about the Tasmanian and the big fish that they'd pull up on the eastern side of Africa.
Yes.
In the Indian Ocean and all that. And he has some really great stories to talk about, that fishery as well. So I'm always intrigued about finding about the other side of the world and all the different spots over there, because we're so familiar with our spots here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Over there, their commercial guys had giant steel fads.
Yeah.
And that would be where they fished. And they might tie up to them and tuna fish and stuff like that.
That's awesome. And so as soon as you bring up the fads, I'm going to skip ahead to a couple of guys. I'll get back to those guys. I'm going to talk about Art Sapp's question. Well, he basically asks you where's your favorite place in the world of blue marlin fishing overall? What are your thoughts and feelings on blue marlin related to fads?
My favorite marlin spot I've ever fished was Australia.
Okay.
Overall.
For blues.
Blacks.
He's asking specifically about blues.
Brazil was probably the best blue marlin fishing. It was size and good numbers. But the Dominican Republic, on the real tight, we were one of the first American boats there. And then the Betsy started coming, and then it started taking off. Before then, it was kind of a bunch of Puerto Ricans and fishing it and keeping it quiet. And the fads definitely congregate it and make it easier. All those fish would still be swimming by,
right?
But they'd be a lot harder to target and get the numbers that you're seeing. the fads
So you
really
think fads is more of a numbers thing, not a
correct.
yeah, not a size thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you're in a place where there's big marlin and there's a bunch of little marlin that, full moons or whatever, when the big females will come in and all the males will be there, they wouldn't not go to fads at all. And they have great fads in Hawaii, and I heard there's some fads now in Cape Verde.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're really good at congregating the marlin, so it makes it easier for you to target and put up bigger numbers.
Who makes these fads?
In the Dominican Republic, it's the little local commercial fishermen in the Pongas that get in
Dude,
it.
I would love to have someone on this show across the table from me, like like a fad maker. I mean, right? That'd be cool to talk to them and be like, "What the hell are you thinking when you're making these damn things? And how do you do it?"
Oh, they get just little rope, 2-strand rope, and they're putting them out in 2,000, 3,000 foot of water. They got 5,000 feet of line.
Make a fad here.
Yeah. Do we have too much current?
That's true. That's true.
But then in Costa Rica, the guys are doing it. They're building giant concrete, like 15 foot long, and like 3 of them, and they have cable going up to a swivel.
Real.
And they have like a giant, steel drum, long, that they know the tube and how deep. And then they'll have like Navy SEAL divers when they go out, and they winch it down 40 feet, and then they'll have stuff coming up, and then they'll go back out and double check them every so often with the Navy SEAls.
Will?
And they swim down, they can double check it, see if it's leaking air. I mean,
like the Los Sueños fads and all. Yeah,
that's a lot bigger
it's
operation.
An operation. Yeah. Wow, I didn't. Yeah, that's I'd love to. We got to do a whole damn podcast on that, on fads. That'd be an interesting one. Yeah, thanks, Art, for the question. All right. Let's get on to some fun ones. All right, because we've been talking all about, we've been getting real here and all the serious stuff. And Nick Cardella, which is always good he's always good for a good time, right?
Yep.
He wants to know, what's your Indian name when you're traveling abroad?
Well, yeah, most people call me Pork Chop, but Eddie Wheeler kind of gave me a nickname of Walking Short, was my Indian name.
All right, there you go, Nick.
And way back in the day, they would call me Sawed Off when I was on the charter boats at Hillsborough.
All right, too good. Thanks, Nick. That's a good one. All right, Skylar DeMuth. Well, listen. He wants to know what your favorite type of shot is, right? And he claims it's Jameson, right?
Now that I'm a little older, I don't do shots at all.
Okay,
shots are the
good
devil.
answer. Good answer.
If you want to maintain. He's asking because him and little Timmy were over in Chubb, and me and my mate were passing through, and they had a Wahoo tournament coming up. And I'm not saying we're always the best influence, so we just kept sending them shots of Jameson, and my mate would do one and make them do one, and we'd see how many we could get them to do.
All right.
So we weren't doing them, but we were sending them. We were glad to send them as many shots of Jameson as they wanted.
Right, and that's whiskey. So I'm going to give a shameless plug to the new Papa's Pilar Rye whiskey that's on the shelves now, first edition. Get it while it's hot.
Yeah.
All right. Our good friend Skip Dana asks, how many hours do you think you spent asleep on the gunwale the real tight?
I never slept on the gunwale. That was always a big, for a good photo shoot when people would be fishes up and down. And it's fairly calm. You'd lay there and be like, what's taking so long? Come on. You could even lay there and do the Don Bailey in the back.
Yeah, the Don Bailey.
I just dated myself with that one, but yeah.
No, it's still there.
Is it?
It's still kicking. It's right there off 95, the Don Bailey billboard. Nice. All right, let's see here. All right, Chris Sanchez actually has a really good question. You have one day to catch a grander blue. If you don't, you have to only run dive boats for the rest of your life. Where are you fishing?
I'm going to Ascension.
Good answer.
I've never fished there.
Right? No, that's a good answer. I've never fished there either, but a good answer. Yeah, definitely. I hear it's you can't get in there. Yeah, it's starting to open up now, right?
I hear it. Last I heard it, there's a plane every once a month. So if you came, you're there for a month. Like, I don't think you can leave for a medical emergency because it's one side's American and one side's British.
All right. So if you have AFib, you can't go.
Yeah.
You got to think like no pressure.
No.
Now.
Mid-Atlantic Ridge, everything
if that opens up, that's just going to be lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Kenny DS asks, have you ever yelled at anyone in the VHF during a tournament?
Maybe once or twice.
Good answer. Okay. Connor Porter. I'm actually going to skip this one.
This is my whole sailfish crew. Okay.
All right. I'm going to skip this one. And I'm going to save this other one for last before we get the Fly's barrage of questions. Connor Porter asks, have you ever let a girl catch fish in your boat?
Have I?
You said no, just him? Yes, just him?
Yeah, I might have run over the line on one sailfish on a girl when they were out there. But it happens.
All right. What I think is probably, I'm guessing, because I had to verify this next question with Adrian Gray. Adrian did not ask you a question, but he did have very nice things to say about your mother.
Oh, my mom's awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
Gussie?
Yes.
Right? So he says like she's like the best woman on the planet, basically. So Adrian wanted to give her a shout out while you're here. So he goes, maybe ask Mike. But I had already asked Mike Myatt.
Okay.
And I said, well, this is what Mike asked. And Adrian goes, damn, that's good. Mike Myatt would like to know how many times you've watched Journey's movie at IGFA.
Way too many to count.
Way too many.
Loved that when it came out.
Yeah? All right. So as a kid, like exposed to it, like did you have to get like stuck watching it all the time?
It was exciting when you first come in and
yeah.
At the IGFA, you'd walk in. And, I mean, I took my kids there all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's neat. They'd have water shoot out at you at the end, and it was neat.
Nice. All right, let's get to Fly's questions. All right.
Now, to start this,
yeah, go ahead.
Everybody should know Fly and I worked together on the Real Tight, which was an 80-foot Merit for eight and a half years.
You guys were married for 8.5 years.
And
basically.
we shared the bunk, like our room. He was on the top bunk, I was on the bottom bunk.
All right. So, in respect to Fly, our good buddy, we're going to read every single one of these.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. And let's see how many there are. There's
rapid
1,
fire.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay.
All right.
All right. Number 1. This is like the David Letterman top 10 of Flying of our questions for Eric Leech. Ask him who offered up a piece of skin for a skin graft on his arm.
Fly wanted to give me some of him when I got a skin graft on my arm.
Okay. All right.
I'll leave the body part.
All right, so that's number 10. Number 9. What's the best way to eat stone crab claws while in the Bahamas?
Well, if you've come from nippers, you just barely crack the claw and then eat the shell and the meat together.
All right. All right. Number 8. What's the best way to deal with an upset HOA? No, full disclosure, I have no idea what any of these things mean.
You just give them fish.
Give them fish. All right. Give them fish. All right, number 7. I'm going to try to remember like what number I'm on here. What is the meanest prank ever played on your Japanese charter?
It was rough, and we picked up these Japanese, a lady and a guy. They weren't even related or dating. It was separate at a tackle shop in Okinawa.
They were completely separate?
Yeah.
They didn't know each other?
No. Like we met on and we said, hey,
and so you didn't know them either?
We didn't know them either. We were just at the tackle shop because you couldn't go to many places. And, hey, you want to go fishing?
In Japan?
In Okinawa.
In Okinawa.
And they come with us.
My best memories of Okinawa was Karate Kid 2.
Yeah. And so we took them fishing, and it was rough. Like it was 8 to 10 foot.
Really?
And so
pitching like that?
Yeah,
really?
It was rough. So we're going down, fishing was slow. So later on, I said, all right. So I go downstairs and I grab a life jacket, and then Jody and Tiny are up on the bridge. I go, all right, watch this. And so I get it, and the two Japanese people are kind of sitting there looking out the back. You know, it's an open.
They getting
boat.
sick?
They weren't sick, but they probably weren't doing too great.
They weren't happy.
And I think she had her own life jacket because she was scared. So Jody and Tiny hide at the front of the bridge. I grab a life jacket and I come running down the middle and I go, and I just jump over the transom. And so all they see is me floating off. And then they run out and they look up and they can't see anybody because they're in the front of the bridge. And they're like yelling at each other. And then they start laughing and they turn around and pick me up.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from that.
So, yeah.
So what did they think?
That we really couldn't communicate with them that well. So I'm sure they were very freaked out. But actually, in hindsight, later on that day, we were by a fad and the guy brought his little jigging. He had like slow pitch jigs. Right. This was back in 2000. We don't know. And it
was still back then. It was a big thing over there.
Over there, it wasn't over here at all. Here,
yeah.
And we're dropping down. We're like, what is this thing? It's like awesome. And he's catching, not big tunas, but like every drop, he'd catch a fish. Big rainbow runners, little yellowfin tunas. Those things are pretty neat, but kind of like. We're big marlin fishermen. We didn't really care, but in hindsight, like, it's.
In hindsight, they're sitting on like a gold mine innovative like thing. Yeah. So 8 to 10 Japanese tourists you've never met before in your life. Yeah. You guys don't speak the same language. Nah. You just up and jump in the water and say the boat is sinking.
Yeah, keep them on their toes.
Oh my god, that's fucking awesome. All right, so. What number are we on? Is that 6 or 7?
I thought you said 7.
All right, so number 6. All right, who hooked the biggest blue marlin ever caught on the reel tight?
I don't know if it was the biggest one ever caught.
I love that you laugh after every one of these questions.
So we're in Panama, and we have a big marlin up. It was on the teaser, and it's teasing in, and it's big. Jim Lambert picks up the pitch, big pitch, 80 with the big lure. And he's holding it there. Well, he puts it under the left short. So the line's going over it. So I pick the left short up and get it over so it's not on his rod tip and reel it up. Well, the marlin doesn't tease all the way in, fades off. And as it's fading off, here's the left short. The marlin comes up, eats the left short. I'm standing there with my rod. So Jim turns around like, yeah, I'm going to catch this big giant marlin. And all of a sudden he turns around and I'm standing there with the rod hooked up. And he looks at me and he goes, "Are you fucking catch it?" And so I felt really bad. So we put Harry Tellum, which was his brother-in-law, and we handed it to him and he caught it. And, it was big. He goes, "If I had caught it, we probably would have killed it." I don't know if it was really 1,000 pounds or not.
But release it.
We released it. But it was big. We did catch and release.
Where was that?
Panama. Right off Penis Bay.
Okay. Nice. All right, I believe we're on number 5 because the rum's kicking in. And I'm having a ton. I went to art school and I'm having a tough time keeping track of numbers. So forgive me, audience. All right. Wow, really? He asked this question? All right, we're gonna ask it.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of a woman? I must be one of them more than Saudi Arabia.
No, I'm a boob guy.
Yeah, he said boobs. He said boobs. He said boobs. Let's see. He's answering every single one of these, by the way. So I guess he's like cross-verifying.
Make sure I'm not lying.
It must be one of them more than Saudi Arabia because I got a long list from Fly on this whole thing. So, all right, number
4.
4. All right, number 4. Why do you love being an observer in tournaments?
Oh, I don't.
That's why I was laughing. Like,
I did it one time, and
oh, you did do it one time?
I did in Venezuela.
How was that?
In Venezuela, it was good. I had to DQ a fish for a really good fisherman.
Oh, that sucks.
And later on, because it wasn't a hook in hand. I don't blame you for not
wanting to do it again then.
And so he hooked it. The mate, who was like an angler for that tournament. Yeah. He hooked a fish, there's a quad up. So the other 2 guys hook fish. This guy hooks one, puts it in the rod holder, picks the other one up, hooks that one,
Yeah.
and then he catches that
Can't
one.
put it in the
and goes
rod
catch
holder.
one.
Yeah.
And so for that tournament, he couldn't. But they had told us, don't say, I'm DQing your fish on the boat. You're not. You come and report to us.
So you told them why you were fishing?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. And I told the tournament committee that night or whatever. And I
Yeah.
said, this one won't count for this reason. And the mate, who's a great captain and stuff like that, he's like, oh, good call. The owner, who was kind of funding it all, he like flew off the handle and didn't like me forever.
Because he
It wasn't even. It's not a big money tournament.
Yeah.
But he was mad at me, and then
they were just doing your job.
Yeah. And then the next day, I was on another boat because you switch boats every day. And it was one of the Venezuelan charter boats, and they had a white marlin. I go down there. It comes close, and the guy never gets the leader, and it takes off some line and pulls the hook. So I go back up, and the captain's like, and I speak decent amount of Spanish, but I'm not fluent. And he's like, what time? He's asking what time to put was the release. And I think he's asking what time it is. So I'm telling him. And he's calling it in on the radio, and I'm like,
right.
whoa. Like, you didn't get that fish. And they're like, what? You didn't see it? What are you, blind? They're giving me a hard time. So then I go back, like, I feel this big, and I ask the angler, I'm like, did you get the leader? Do you feel you got the leader? He's like, no, we missed it by like 5 feet, and it pulled the hook. I'm like, okay. But they were giving me a hard time, so I'm like, all right, never again.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it again.
Brick Peoples.
Yeah.
I'm very good friends with him, and he's the tournament director for the Jimmy Johnson, like both tournaments, or all three of the tournaments, I should say. And, I asked him, so I'm like, dude, like, it's a great gig. And he's like, oh, I love it because Todd and Val are great to work for, and the whole event and the whole thing, it's a lot of fun to work. I worked with them for 12 years. Trust me, it's a lot of fun working with the Jimmy Johnson franchise. And I'm like, what's the shittiest part of the job for you? I just joked asking that. And he got real serious. He's like, DQing fish. I hate it.
Yep.
He goes, but you got to do it. He goes, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but the rules are rules, man.
Yep. I like how they say it, him and Jamie Bunn. He goes, we don't want to DQ a fish. We look for every way to qualify your fish.
Yep,
sometimes
for sure.
It doesn't happen. And they both do a great job of communicating that, and sometimes it happens and whatnot. But yeah, when it sucks when you have to.
So
everybody's working hard.
It's kind of crappy when you got a guy on the bridge like that, like fighting you about it.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
I'm not doing it to taunt you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Especially you're out in the middle of the water. You'll throw me overboard in 8 to 10 foot seas in Okinawa.
Exactly.
So were we on number 3 or 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
All right. So, what was the greatest prank ever played by the boys of the Real Tight?
We had a lot. Of.
So I hear.
We had a lot of good ones. Some of my favorite were in Panama, like in Penis Bay. Almost every morning you'd wake up because you're anchored in the
really
jungle.
Sounds like you're saying Penis Bay.
That's basically how it is.
Is it just me?
Yeah. And there'd always be some giant bug. 2 handful like size bugs.
Yeah.
And so we'd catch them and we'd put them in the freezer. And then when people would fall asleep, we would get elaborate. We'd tape a ring up there with fishing line, like 8-pound line, and we'd swing it into their face, or we'd wait to dinner time and all kinds. So those were fun. We did get Pete Buenas one time. He's Greek and he was very proud of being Greek, and we cut down his Greek flag in St. Thomas one time during the Boy Scout, and we put a rainbow flag up.
Really?
And his captain was on board, so they like one rainbow marlin release for the ship's cafe, and he doesn't know about it. And that's like 3/4 of the day, and finally Jim Lambert calls him up, and he goes, "Pete, I knew you were Greek, and so it's not a far stretch, but I like your new flag up there." And he looks, the guy lost it.
Really?
He wanted to tell the cat. He wanted to literally ran the boat.
No.
He hated us. That day we got in. And we're like, Fly and I are taking the trash out down the dock. This guy comes, and he was old at that time, but he was still pretty strong. And he about locks Fly up, and Fly drops to the ground, and I like ran away. And Fly's like, if you beat the guy up, now you beat this guy up who's got like old knees and new hips.
Right, yeah.
You know, but
Yeah,
at the same time, you don't want to be thrown in the water by this guy. He was serious. That was pretty good. And we did another one that was pretty good where we, you know, back in the day, if you left your flags up past 8 a.m., people would nail them to your teak or your dock.
To your teak?
Back in the day, yeah.
Wow.
Before my time, but
for sure.
So one of the boats in St. Thomas, you know, it was the end of, you know, their last day of the moon, and they had left their flag up for like 3 days. So we snuck up and we screwed it to the dock, and then we stripped the heads of the screws, and we said flags have to be down by 8 a.m. And Bobby Brown was leaving, having dinner on the boat that day, so we come back laughing. And
recipient of the Tommy Gifford Award.
Yes. Yep. And he goes, you guys better not put my name on it. We're like, no, of course not. So now we go back out and put signed Bobby Brown. So months later, the captain's like, Bobby Brown's name comes up, and Fly and Joe are with the captain. He's like, that guy, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill that guy. I can't believe it. So they had to come clean. They're like, all right, let's calm down.
Right.
It wasn't Bobby Brown. It was us. We were messing around. He flew off the handle for that one, too.
It's good stuff, man. All right. Well, let's see. I got 2 more left. I'm going to ask them both at the same time.
All right.
Okay. And then that'll be all of Fly's questions, and we'll probably wrap up the podcast after that. And I want to thank Fly, and I'm going to say in advance, usually we pick a winner of the best question, but being that this is the first time in the history of the show anyone submitted 10 questions, I'll just have to give Fly a bottle of rum next time.
But he doesn't drink.
That is right. So I'll have to give it to somebody else.
So if you ever talk to Fly, ask him about the day he quit drinking.
Yeah.
You could ask him about the slap heard around the world.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me?
Yeah. So we're in. So we're.
Sorry, Fly, in advance.
So
we're sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna ask the questions. You tell me.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So there's how many different places? We don't have to answer this one. How many different places do we have real tight stickers? Don't have to answer that. Ask him about the bus ride up to the botanical garden from Golfito to Costa Rica. So we take the rest of the show away with all
that was we would do this quite a bit, but you know, you're in a foreign country, you're not the best at the language. Well, Fly is, but you know, I have a little
it's
more
debatable though.
Yeah, more than enough to get by myself.
Yeah.
So you know, a lot of times to go up there, you know, you have a few days off, a day off, you just go get on a bus. You go to the bus, find the bus station in town, and hop on a bus, and go wherever it takes you. You know, I don't know where it takes you. And then all of a sudden it stops, and you're like, oh, all right, well, let's try this one. You get off, and hang on. We happen to get off, and there's a beautiful botanical garden, and you know, drinks, and you know, find a little hole in the wall bar, a little local bar, and you're just hanging with locals. And we would do that quite a bit. But that was a nice place.
All right. Oh yeah. That's a lovely story, Eric.
That wasn't too crazy.
Now tell me about the time Robert Fly Navarro got slapped.
He didn't get slapped.
Oh, he didn't get slapped. Okay, good.
So we're in Isla Mujeres, and it's Joe Fly and myself, and we're hanging out. Late night at one of the little bars there. And this girl's, you know, playing slapper. What is it? Drink or slap or whatever. Like
the girls are playing this?
Yeah, kiss or slap.
Okay.
And like,
I've never heard of this game.
Yeah, they're trying to make it up because they thought this little Cuban guy was cute and stuff like that. So,
okay.
So they go up there. So the girl kiss slap. She's like, slap. So she goes up. Yeah, Fly figures he's gonna get a kiss. All of a sudden, she gives him a little slap.
Okay.
Not bad at all. So then all of a sudden it comes around. It's Fly's turn now. So he's like, kiss or whatever. I don't know. So he's got her head there. got her hand in there like he's about to come in for a nice kiss. And then all of a sudden he comes up and slaps.
No.
I mean, it's not like knocking
This
teeth
is
out.
fun slap.
But
Yeah.
but it was totally, she thinks she's finally like playing hard to get. Now she's finally getting this kiss. And all of a sudden she gets a little slap. And all of a sudden, you know, we thought we were here drinking for free. All of a sudden we get a full bar tab and get told to get out of here. And I forget what happened in the world, but something big had happened in the world, and a lot of stuff in different countries had kind of happened.
Okay.
Not COVID or anything. I
Right.
forget what the world event type thing was. But so we were calling it the slap herd around the world, and literally like the next day we like left the marina, so we told everybody we got kicked out because of fly. Which wasn't true, but
Right.
we were saying that was the slap herd around the world, and after that, he's like, never mind, I'm not drinking anymore.
Nice. And really, he stopped drinking then?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. It's what he says to me. He goes, I didn't stop drinking because I had a problem. Because I just stopped drinking because I didn't want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
I always thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
reason just to not drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't really hear the people like, oh, I'll just drink. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he's like, no. You know, I
It's like,
I don't have a problem. I just don't
Yep.
want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Listen, man. We hung out.
Absolutely.
You shared some really cool stories, and I got to know you a little better, which is the coolest part for me.
Yep.
You know, and I just want to thank you for coming in and sharing that with me and explaining to whoever wants to listen to this or watch this, like, you know, why your story matters, and I really do feel that it does, and that's why I wanted you in today, and I thank you for opening up and
No, thank you for having
and
me.
sharing a little bit that with us, and it's kind of cool, man. So, and yeah, what's next for you?
When I get out of the boatyard, we're getting a fancy little. We got rid of our big pulpit, and we're getting a little fancy roller like everybody else has, and
Okay,
we're going to Key West, and we'll be down there for a month or two, and then back to the Dominican Republic.
back to the DR. Yeah.
And then we'll be back here for sailfish season.
All right, cool, man. Cool. Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
You want to hang out with me for a little bit at the bar, and then we're just gonna say goodbye to everybody.
Absolutely. Enjoy the Papa's Pilar.
Yeah, absolutely. 100 people. I owe you a bottle, so I'm gonna give that to you now. So cool, man. Well, listen, we're not gonna end it the way we're not gonna do the church announcements anymore, right? Didn't we say that we're not gonna go through and right? Yeah. So I mean, buy a truck from Joey Accardi, drink a lot of Papa's Pilar rum, right?
The new Papa's whiskey instead of Jameson.
Yep, exactly. Good recall, right? The rye, first edition rye. Get the breakfast sauce from Bear and Burton's W sauce. This is Bear Holman's kind of deal. And then get yourself some Fitnor sunglasses, and those are our advertisers. Right? We're all good to go. You get Papa's Raw Bar, where we just put a big wall wrap up in there and made the place hopefully look a little bit better than it was before. So cool.
Nice.
All right, Eric Leech. You're the man. Thank you very much. Your ego is not your amigo. Always do your best, and at the end of the day, just let God do the rest. And do not ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we're all connected by water.
Absolutely.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Cool.